Chapter 3. For the next 2 months until the end of April, the stranger worked every day and most nights. He stopped occasionally to take walks, but only at twilight. He always kept his face and hands covered when Mrs. Hall brought him his food or when he went outdoors. He ignored greetings from villagers on those walks and seemed to enjoy scaring children who teased him. He talked to himself behind locked doors and went into rages, smashing furniture and equipment. When Mrs. Hall complained about her ruined furnishings, he paid her for the damage and always added something extra. On several occasions, Mr. Hall asked his wife to get rid of the stranger, but each time she reminded him, "This time of year we don't have many paying guests. I'll wait until the summer business starts. For now he pays his bills and we can use the money." During his 3 months in Ipping, the stranger became a regular topic of conversation among the villagers. Questions about him were answered by Mrs. Hall with explanations such as, "He's an important scientist working on some very secret experiments for the government," or "He's had an accident which scarred his face and hands, and since he's a very sensitive gentleman, he doesn't care to be seen in public." Many of the townspeople, however, preferred Teddy's explanation that the man was a criminal trying to hide from the police by wrapping himself up in bandages. Others didn't waste too much time on the man and simply decided he was a harmless lunatic. One person in Ipping was more curious about the stranger than most others. That was John Cuss, the village doctor, who was intrigued by the stories of the thousands of bottles in the man's room and wanted to see them. When he finally came up with a good reason for calling on the stranger to request a donation to the Ipping Nurse Fund, Dr. Cuss made his way to the Coach and Horses Inn. Mrs. Hall led the doctor up the stairs and waited as he knocked at the door. A low voice muttered something in reply. Assuming that the reply was permission to enter, the doctor opened the door and went inside. Mrs. Hall, however, didn't move from the hallway after Dr. Cuss had closed the door behind him. She was much too curious to leave, as she stood there for 10 minutes. But all she heard was the murmur of voices. Suddenly, a cry of surprise made her jump back. It was followed by the rapid shuffling of feet and a bark of laughter. Then the door burst open, and Dr. Cuss came running through it, his eyes staring back into the room and his face a deadly white. He almost knocked the woman over as he rushed down the stairs and disappeared out the door. Mrs. Hall heard the stranger laughing wildly as he slammed the bedroom door shut. Meanwhile, Dr. Cuss had fled to the home of Reverend Bunting. He burst into the churchman's study and gasped, "I think I've lost my mind. Do I look insane?" The startled Reverend looked up from the sermon he was writing and asked, "Insane? What are you raving about, Cuss?" "It's that stranger at the inn," said the doctor breathlessly. "I've just had the most frightening experience with him. I went to call on him to get a donation to the nurses' fund. When I opened the door to his room, he immediately stuck his hand into his pockets and slumped down in his chair. All the while I was talking about the fund, I kept staring at the bottles and powders and chemicals and test tubes everywhere. Then I asked him point blank, 'Are you working on a secret research project?' In between sneezes and sniffles from a nasty cold he's got, he snapped at me, 'If you must know, yes.' I had searched for years and finally found the answer. The formula I needed for, well, never mind what for. All the ingredients were written on a piece of paper on my lab table when the breeze from an open window lifted the paper and carried it toward the fireplace. As it was being carried up the chimney, I rushed to reach out my arm and grab it like this." And he reached out his arm as if to show me how he made a grab for the paper, but there was no hand, just an empty sleeve. My first thought was that he had an artificial arm and had taken it off, but then I began to wonder why, if he had no arm, what was keeping his sleeve up and open as he showed me how he reached? No, there was nothing in that sleeve. I could look right into it, clear through to the elbow. He saw me staring and... Yes, go on. Well, that's all. He never said a word, just glared at me as he put his sleeve back in his pocket and returned to his story of the paper that had blown up the chimney, but I wasn't about to let it go. "How can you move an empty sleeve?" I asked him. With that, he stood up and walked towards me until he was only inches away from my face. I don't mind telling you that having that bandaged face and those eerie glasses so close to my face sent shivers through my body. Then his voice came at me menacingly. "Did you say it was an empty sleeve?" "Yes, I did." Then he slowly pulled his sleeve out of his pocket and raised it as if he was about to show it to me again. It was a strange feeling seeing an empty sleeve coming at me like that. Then suddenly something, it felt like a finger and a thumb, pinched my nose. The Reverend began to laugh. "Don't laugh! There was nothing there!" shrieked Dr. Cuss in a panic. "I swear it!" Reverend Bunning shook his head sadly as he looked at the doctor and wondered if the old gentleman was beginning to imagine things, or perhaps had taken to drinking. "Reverend, please believe me," pleaded Dr. Cuss. "I even swung my arm at him and struck his sleeve. I felt like I was hitting an arm, but there wasn't any arm there. I felt something, but I saw nothing. Nothing, I tell you, nothing. It was as if there was a ghost inside those clothes."